Good morning, Singapore. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our weekly LinkedIn Live. Apologies for the slight technical delay, but hey, we are here this morning. Wanted to say hi to everyone. For those of you who just joined us for the first time, my name is Adrian, and I'm the CEO founder of Career Agility International. And together with me, as every week, we have Yen. Yen, how are you this morning? Your microphone's off as usual. You can turn on your mic, Yen.
All right, I'm happy it's a Friday. I'm happy it's a Friday. Yes, I have some brain moments. You'll have to forgive me.
Yeah, you've had your second cup of coffee already, right? I hope so. It's amazing,
Cheers.
kids. Yeah, it's amazing how fast it is. We're all in the fourth quarter already, and we're only like about 70 days, 80 days away from Christmas. So, the countdown has started.
Wait. Count down to Halloween first, my friend.
So sorry, I don't celebrate Halloween. It's too scary for me, so I don't.
Right.
But
Anyway.
what's interesting is that I'm really looking forward to this morning's session, because this morning's session we have a very special guest, and we always have amazing guests on our show, don't we?
Yes, and today it's really good because it's nice to reconnect with our old friend Jason Dasey.
Yeah, and the coolest
Shall
thing
we bring
about
him in?
it's yeah, we shall. Let's see if he's in. Okay, knock knock. Let's bring Jason in too, and welcome, Jason. How are you? Knock knock. Are you there?
Hi, Adrian. Hi, Ian. It's good to be with you. I've been looking forward to this, and we've had a pandemic in between our last meeting in that radio studio at Topayo at SPH Radio Studios and Money FM, and here we are in 2022, as you mentioned, so close to Christmas, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about the ups and downs of career and pivoting and changing as you need to.
Yeah, that's amazing, And for those of you who might not be familiar with Jason, where have you been? But okay, for those of you who are not familiar with Jason, Jason's he's very well known sports anchor, sportscaster, and he's been with all the top broadcasting stations. No, he was previously with CNN, BBC, Astro, and so many more. I don't know, but it's amazing. And he's been in Singapore since 2001, in and out. And what's amazing is right now, he is enjoying his time back in Brisbane, were you born in Brisbane? Are you a Queenslander?
No, actually, you can hear the train going by as I talk to you. I'm actually near the train line here in Brisbane, and it reminds me of actually where I grew up in Sydney, in the inner city of Sydney, and that's where I grew up on the North Shore of Sydney, near the harbour. And I've created most of my career overseas, but I always wanted to be a journalist. And as you mentioned, I was based in Singapore between 2001 and 2019, so almost 2 decades, and came back to Australia in 2019. And then, you guys are very familiar with Australia. I chose Queensland because I wanted a bit of a quieter life with better climate and a bit cheaper. And it's been 3 years. So far, so good. We're loving it here in Queensland.
Oh, nice.
It's hard to believe it's been 3 years. It's so, right? It feels so quick. It feels like the time just zips by like that,
Yeah, I mean, it's a really strange thing, isn't it? That I vividly remember, the three of us working together in 2018 and 2019. I left Singapore around July 2019, you'll remember, and went back to Australia. And then I continued to travel offshore a lot to get work because it took a while to get momentum going in Australia. And the last time we were together was in January of 2020 at Money FM when I was doing some fill-in. And that was just before this pandemic was closing in on the world. And so the last couple of years have been a bit of a blur, Some of it's gone quickly and some gone slowly. And I'm sure you can relate to what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Can you tell us, share with our listeners again a quick overview of your illustrious career history?
Well, as Adrian mentioned, I've worked for most of the big networks. I've worked for CNN, BBC, ESPN, ESPN Star Sports, Astro, Sky, a lot of big networks. And I think I'm best known within Southeast Asia for being a sports presenter. Yeah. I was actually at CNN in 2001 when I came out to Singapore to start a show called SportsCenter, which was shown across Southeast Asia. I was the main anchor of that. And then, just continued to work in different media companies across Southeast Asia during that time. I set up a team in Astro from 2009 to 2014 for English Premier League coverage. And then when I met Adrian, it was actually after working at Disney in Singapore, the Sandcrawler building there for 4 years. I was laid off. And Adrian was my transition coach as I had this transition period. The Disney company, Walt Disney Company, really takes care of its employees. And this was something that, in a way, was a blessing in disguise, and we can talk more about that later. But I think, yeah, I'm the first Australian presenter on BBC World. That was in 1994. I was the first presenter on CNN International in 1999. And, you know, I feel that there are probably a couple of things I'm proud of, but there have been many twists and turns, ups and downs. You know, in a 40-year career, I've been laid off 3 times. You know, I've moved countries.
And after each time, you bounced back so nicely, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, and I think we'll again, we can talk about this, but each time I was laid off, I think the first time I was 29. And then that was in the UK with Sky News. And that was because of the first Gulf War. They were spending a lot of money on their Gulf coverage, and they needed to cut money. And I was a sports presenter, so that was one of the things that was cut.
Wow.
I was cut in 2006 when I was 44 after 5 years at ESPN Star Sports because they needed to cut costs. I was very expensive. And the last time I was cut was in early 2018 when I met Adrian in Singapore, having worked for Disney for 4 years.
How did we get into the negative stories?
No,
but each time you've managed to bounce back, and that's really what we want to hear. Like, how did you feel each time it happened? And you tell us how you dusted yourself off and how you managed to get onto the next bandwagon.
Well, the first time when I was 29, it was in the UK. I was in London working for Sky News UK, and that was devastating. At the age of 29, to lose a job was really tough, and I think I had never happened to me before.
And you were in London at the time, right? Or so far from home, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I've been there for a while, so I was fairly settled. But it was really hard because you feel that it's a big blow to your ego, and I mean, other people were laid off as well, but you know, you felt that it was a slap in the face, and I felt a bit lost. The good thing was that I was well compensated for the layoff. So what I decided to do was go to France, study French for 6 months with the money that I was given from the layoff. And that turned out to be a very positive experience. And in a way, because unlike you guys, I went straight from school into journalism. I got what they call a cadetship, becoming a cub reporter at the Sydney Morning Herald. So I was 17 when I started. So I never really had the uni years, the student years. Okay. So in a way, I looked, well, this is my chance now to have that experience at the age of 29. So I went out to Paris and grew a moustache and got a guitar and started busking on the streets and then hanging out with all sorts of international students studying French. You know, and it was a wonderful experience. So that was very difficult, to be honest. And then the next time was also difficult. When I was 44, I'd worked in that high-profile role in Singapore as a presenter for SportsCenter Asia, which I'd launched as the original anchor, which you can see all around Southeast Asia. I also did SportsCenter India. And at the end, in 2006, I'd just come back from the FIFA World Cup in Germany and done a really good job. And the boss asked me to come into his office, and I thought he was going to thank me for the hard work I'd done for 40 days straight in Germany. And, you know, he said, Jason, it's not working out anymore. You're going to have to leave. Again, I said, well, aren't you happy with my performance? He said, oh, look, it's a business decision. And then I kind of read the tea leaves. That meant I was very expensive and it was costing the company a lot of money. So that was tough. I was 44, mid-career, done the same job for 5 years. I was really good money. And that was very, very tough. So I was a bit lost at that time as well. And I scrambled and I got a job actually within ESPN, but in the US. Somehow I got that job. It took about 6 months, but I got another job and I felt I got it. And then a lot of the people listening and watching this program will know that if you're in your mid-40s and you get laid off in the prime of your earning potential, it can be tough. Yeah. So luckily I was able to. It is tough, and also in a field like presenting, where you can lose credibility and currency very quickly. You know, super quickly. It's all about how relevant are you.
What I find most exciting, about your career has been that you've spent 40+ years in the entertainment slash broadcasting industry, and over that 40 years, you've always evolved. I mean, you've never been in one format all the time, but you've evolved. The first part of it was writing, right? I remember you had lots of nice articles you were writing, and then you went on to TV. How did you pivot into that space? Was it out of necessity, or was it a plan, or was it by accident?
I think, you're right, Adrian. I really liked to write when I was young. As a young journalist, I had a flair, and, I enjoyed words, and I enjoyed the thrill of the big story. That I got a lot of big stories when I was very young, from like as 17, 18 years old, into 21. Yet I'd always been intrigued by television and entertainment, and I covered it as a journalist, as a print journalist. And I guess, the glare or the spotlight kind of attracted me, and I gave it a shot. So I could have continued in print journalism, but I decided in the 1980s I wanted to give it a try. And because I'd had some big stories in print, it attracted the attention of a TV station.
Oh, wow.
And then that was a very difficult transition. We can talk more about that later. But it was just through desire, but just to finish off the getting laid off story. In 2018, when I was laid off at Disney, that's when I met you, Adrian, and I knew about Career Really International. And I was 50, let me think. So it was 2018, I was 56. And then it didn't feel bad. I was, in a way, happy that I'd been laid off. I was still kind of scratching my head and wondering what I'd do. And through talking to you, I decided that, and talking to other people as well, that I needed to pivot away from doing TV presenting and sports and all that. And I wanted to try something different. And that's when I went into radio at that time, because it always intrigued me a bit. I'd done bits and pieces, but I thought, this is really an interesting medium. I want to get away from sports. I'm burned out. I've done it for so long. I'll try radio.
You know what I'm hearing? Number one, there's lots of ups and downs. And I'm certain that your ups are really, really high, and the downs were really, really low. So I can imagine that amplitude, right? That cyclical emotions. But what I'm hearing that's been a constant, I guess a common point, is that you have this thing called a transferable pivot. And that's really based on that superpower that you have, which is your writing, the communication, and those transferable skills that we keep talking about. And that, I think, is the hinge of why you've been so agile all these years. Because when you experiment while young, that's great. I mean, that's something I think a lot of our listeners would probably be doing as well. When you're in your 20s, you try something, and then luck happens, right? But you have to put yourself out there to get noticed. So that's another huge point. And after that, I'm hearing all about this thing. I mean, I would term it the transferable pivot. So the fact that after layoff, but your skills as a presenter, that voice you have, amazing, got picked up by someone else. Sure, you had to travel to another market for it, but hey, there's a demand, and you should go where there's demand, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a sense of adventure, and I think that was developed from being a young newspaper reporter and getting the big story, the thrill of the chase of getting the story. And I think as you get on in your career, when you do suffer setbacks, it's less of a blow to you because you're more assured and you've got the track record. And I think that's really helped me through the difficult times. And I mentioned 3 times being laid off, and each time was a bit easier. But of course, the last time was really easy because I was also very well compensated for, being, well, they say, I think they've got a word for it, not terminated, but they use a different word. But, Disney's a great company, and it looked after me. And I was very grateful for those 4 years because it was my, maximum earning period and chapter. And I knew that wouldn't last forever. Yeah. So already I was starting to think about what's next because I know this won't last forever.
That's a great point. Nothing lasts forever. And so to our listeners out there and to all the clients that we've ever looked after, we say this over and over again, isn't it, Adrian? Like, bad times don't last, but good times don't last either.
They don't last as long as you want them to. But once again, it comes back to
roof before it
comes
rains.
back to our what we always say. In fact, right now our the hot topic which we are talking about to our clients and to our corporate clients as well is the topic about seasons. You can't always have it all the time, all your life. But there'll be seasons where you'll be working really hard and you may not be very focused on your family. But then there are seasons where, for some reason or other, where you have a lot of time to focus on your family and your health and other bits. And it's all about, can we have it all? And the answer is no. Yeah, we can. But oftentimes it's in seasons. And right now, when I look at what Jason's doing, when I follow him on his Facebook page and everything, I see he's having a good season right now because he's having both the work-life balance, good family time, with great climate, and and your daughter Ella is a real big young lady already now. So it's exciting, isn't it, to kind of have it all right now?
Yeah, it is. It is, and I think I strategically planned it to come back at this time. And we spoke about this when we were doing the Money FM show 3+ years ago, that you really have to get the timing right, and perhaps you've got someone out there who's in another country thinking about coming back to Singapore or whatever else. So I think it's a bit like you talk about different chapters and in different seasons. I also look at it like riding a wave as a surfer. Sometimes it'll be a short ride, and other times you're like, wow, this is a great ride, and I'm just on this wave as long as I can. I'm going to ride as long as I can.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
Yeah, and even when I was laid off at ESPN Star Sports, and I was one of the top anchors there, it was really a big shock. It was a terrible shock. But a lot of people continued at that company for many more years than me, and probably 10+ years. And when that ride finished, they didn't know what to do, because they were so entrenched in that sort of chapter. So I think, I never really worked at one company for more than about 5 years. And that's not always by choice. Sometimes I've been laid off. So I think I have had to become quite nimble and agile and realize that, what I'm on now may not be happening next year, and so on. And that's a reality of I think, society today, and also the workforce.
I think the other thing that you've done very well was network. Because of all the work that you've done, you've established relationships everywhere and very broadly, in fact. And I think that's probably helped you a lot somewhat in helping you land in the next gig and the one after that and the one after that, right?
It has. And I see both of you as good networkers, especially Adrian is the master super networker. And I think you have to do it from a genuine perspective. I think a lot of people are very short-sighted, and they're very transactional, and they think, well, why should I talk to Yen? She's not going to give me a job in the next year. Why? Whereas, we all know that you just don't know. That person may know someone else. And coming back to Australia, I have networking has helped a lot. And sometimes it may not be. Sometimes, and again, your listeners may kind of be able to relate to this, because I was away from Australia for so long, 25 years. A lot of your old contacts from when you used to live there, it's almost like they're used to you being away, so it's hard to get it back again as if you're like the old days. So it may be that the best person that you're networking may be a fairly recent contact or friend. And I've got an example, Oriel Morrison, who was the CNBC anchor, who actually is a fellow Australian, and we met in Singapore. She's back in Brisbane now, and we just merely met in Singapore maybe 4 years ago. She's become a very strong contact, rather than the people that I knew 25 years ago in the 90s or whatever. So but I mean, I just enjoy, I'm a journalist. I love talking to people. I'm a nosy so-and-so. I like asking questions. So that helps.
What else keeps you positive, Jason? Besides being naturally curious about everyone else.
What else? Well, I think having, you guys all have kids like me, having a young kid, my daughter's turning 13 in January, and that keeps you young, even though I'm in my 60s now. It's hard to believe I'm saying that.
You don't look it, Jason. You don't look it. Okay, so.
Gosh, I could have thought you were 25.
but I feel like I'm straddling two generations. I'm straddling the late baby boomers that I'm part of. The Obamas.
No way.
Yeah. I'm straddling them, but I'm also straddling the 30-somethings. I was talking to a mum yesterday. She's 31, and she's got kids a similar age to Ella, and she's 31. I could be her mum, her dad, and my nephew is as old as she is. So I think that does keep you young. That if you have a connection with, and I do work at ABC, and I often work with 20-somethings. And so I don't know what it is. And maybe living in Singapore has helped too, to having been in that very agile, nimble, that kind of transient atmosphere. It's such a great hub. That's maybe got something to do with it as well.
No, I'm curious. I would like to find out on behalf of all our listeners right now, your pivot from Disney over to radio. Okay, and I was there during your transition. What were some of the things that came to mind? I mean, was it an easy move, or did you learn new skill sets, and how did you land that job itself? Maybe you talk about the skill, or what made you decide to pivot into the radio piece.
Well, I think even before I met you, Adrian, in 2018, it was early 2018, I got laid off. I think it was like March 2018. I actually met a school friend. Actually, it was a girl. I went to North Sydney Girls High. I went to North Sydney Boys High. And she worked at Qantas for a long time in management positions. And then she became a career coach or something similar to what you guys do. So I met her a couple of years before. And I at that time, my career was going fine. I was at Disney. And I was sort of saying to her, look, I'm just feeling a bit stale about what I can do in my career now, because I've done sports presenting and all this and news presenting. And she said, well, just have a think about it. Maybe there's something that interests you. And the radio didn't even come up, but just talking to her, I guess, started that conversation. And then when I met Adrian in 2018, one exercise that he did, and I'm sure he does it with a lot of people, is write down everything from your current job that you like and write down everything from the current job that you don't like. And I guess that helped put into focus, because in that job at Disney, I also continued to do broadcasting for the India market. And, and I just, the broadcasting, I love the broadcasting. And I just thought that maybe radio might be a way of doing that and doing it as I get older and older and older, and doing it in a way that's very nimble and agile as well. You don't need a big camera, or you
don't need makeup. You don't need.
Yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly.
You just wake up and just go to work. Wake up and just go to work and talk. Right, that's about it.
Yeah, exactly.
In your pajamas.
So radio had always interested me, and because I'd made good income working for Disney for 4 years and got a payout, I was in pretty good financial shape. So I didn't have to chase the big money job anymore. And I felt at 56, it's not easy to get a job like that anymore. So, there was a new radio station at SPH, Singapore Press Holdings, called Money FM. And through LinkedIn, again, networking, there was a guy called Jamie Meldrum. And I think Adrian would probably remember Jamie. Jamie sadly passed away about 2 years ago. Fellow Aussie, great background. And he was a friend of mine on LinkedIn, or a contact of mine on LinkedIn. And, I just sort of chatted to him. I said, hey, on 1FM, I heard Fox on the Run by Sweet. That's a really good song. So we just started chatting about music, and of course, I know that Adrian and you do some stuff for 1FM with FD and Glenn. But anyway, so I just started a friendship on LinkedIn. We met up and he said, look, there's not really anything on the music stations going, but there's a new radio station called Money FM starting. Maybe you might be someone that they could consider using. And to cut a long story short, I got in touch with Loretta Lopez, who was the boss of Money FM, and Huat as well, I think one of the bosses there. So, and they said, we'll give you the weekend person has just started, but they don't really like it, and we're not really, that happy with them, or well, I think they didn't want to do it because it's bad hours. So you want to try the weekends? And that was in March of 2018. March 8, 2018, I started training. I think my first show was April 2018. And I think the first or second week, Adrian came on as my guest because I'd known him from that transition.
All I'm hearing is network and just keep networking, because
and being bold enough to reach out, right?
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah, well,
and people say, how is it that you're so lucky? It's not luck, it's manufactured.
That's true. And I think, meeting Jamie, who was a lovely guy, knew so much about radio, had a great voice. You think, my voice is okay. His voice was just off the charts. He did all those character voices, for Singapore, Merlion, and all this sort of stuff. You may remember these sort of campaigns. And I learned a lot from him. I would get him on my show at Money FM, and I just listened to him. And we actually did some podcasts about how to do good radio that I said, well, how do you do it? You're so good at it. So just through networking with him and being willing to learn, and I've done radio previously, but not operating the panel and organizing all the guests and
those
all
were
that.
new skills which you had to pick up, right?
The dashboard is a different story.
Because you were handling everything at one go. You didn't even have like a full-time producer. I remember you were doing the controls and everything. That was a skill you had to learn, right?
It was, and thankfully Jason Desmond, you'll know him, Adrian, from, I think he filled in for me, JD from Malaysia. JD, who I'd worked with again, and it gets back to building relationships. He was my colleague. I was his boss actually at Astro. He'd come on some of my TV, football shows. DJ from Malaysia, and as you know, Astro has TV stations and radio stations and everything, magazines. So because of my good relationship with him from a previous company, I said, hey, JD, I'm learning radio. Can you come down and help me how to operate the panel? And so he helped me the first weekend. I was really kind of scared about how to do it. So he came down, and then I helped him. I would give him work. He would come through my Singapore company when I wasn't there. He would fill in for me, and I know he had Adrian on sometimes.
No. And I want to do a special shout out to Jason Desmond right now. I know he'll be watching it because I'm going to send him the link. So hi JD, we're waiting for you down in Singapore to come back in again. So hop in when you can. A cup of coffee awaits. And
he's from Penang originally from Penang is Jason Desmond, and again he's a JD. He's an Aries like me. I'm a bit older than him, but we have a lot in common. We love football.
What I'm hearing is that the network becomes mentors, and the mentors become networks, and the networks become something else, and friends, and it just becomes, it's all kind of fluid. But what I'm also hearing is that you if you have that channel tuned in your mind, your connections become very, very optimal, and that's amazing, I think.
Yeah, they really do. And Jason, Desmond, and I, we helped each other. And then to carry on that sort of theme, my first intern that I had at Money FM was a guy called Adrian Abraham, who was an Indian national but had studied in the UK, so he had a lovely British accent. And he sent me a message on LinkedIn, can I come in and help you out? And I'm like, who is this guy? But he was always very courteous. He was persistent but courteous, not being aggressive. So, okay, come on in, So he'd come in early on a Saturday or Sunday morning and help out. Now, as you guys know, Adrian Abraham hosts the 12 to 1 show on Money FM, and he's 28 years old.
We just met him last Thursday at the studio.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. And he has a great voice.
He does, and he's really improved. And the other thing that he's
doing, a really cool man bun as well.
I know. I think he's got that since I left, but I've seen it. But the other interesting thing is he's helping me now by bringing me on his show every couple of weeks to talk about Australian news. So, for free, but I just want to keep myself sharp and practice. And
so, in the news, right?
There's lots going on, and the thing is, so he remembers how I helped him. He didn't need that much help. He was already good, but he's trying to pay it back, pay it forward. I think that's very important in any profession. And sadly in media, it's a very cutthroat. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's very cutthroat.
Yeah, it is.
But when you can nurture these relationships and then people remember what you did to help them, then it's really satisfying.
Nice. So I want to ask a fluffier topic. Who are some of the most interesting celebrities that you've met and interviewed?
Well, a lot of them, I guess, are around the sports area, but I'd say George Foreman, the boxing champion who had the Foreman Grill, who was a world heavyweight boxing champion.
Yes, who went into cooking.
What I learned from him, Yan, is that he came up with something that you guys say, you just can't rest on your laurels in one area. He pivoted into the kitchen area. Yeah. Right? He pivoted into the kitchen area. So, he's probably better known for his grill now than he is for his boxing.
Because you can't box forever. I think that's an age limit.
Yeah, that's true. Very
another one,
shelf life.
Yeah. Another one that made a big impression on me was Nadia Comaneci, who was the perfect 10 gymnast. Yeah. We got 10 out of 10, the first athlete that, some of our younger listeners may not remember her, but look her up. She's from Romania. She was the first 10 out of 10 athlete at the Olympics. And she'd become a coach, and the way that she kind of transformed her life, that, she stood out. And the other one would be Roger Federer, who I interviewed a few times when I was at ESPN, just about how he carried himself. He was obviously, almost the perfect tennis player, but he carried himself with grace, with humility, and he was respectful, despite all the pressures and everything else that came with it. So there are people in other industries as well. The chef Neil Perry, who came on my show in Singapore, Money FM, he's a great guy that I met. And all sorts of people across different industries, actors, but I think there are some of the ones that stand out.
Nice, that's cool. What would you share with our listeners in terms of the top few things that I think would be your part of your learning, or something that you'd like to share with them as some advice for some of our listeners who might be traveling a bumpy journey right now?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would say, I've got my kind of tips here about what you need to do if you are pivoting going back home to a different country. I don't know if that's the time to share that. Maybe I can share something more general. What would you like now? Yeah.
No, I want to hear your wisdom. I want to hear top takeaways for any listener who might be feeling a little bit, roughed up from the nonsense that's been going on in the corporate world.
Yeah, I think, you've got to take a step back and give yourself some quiet time. And, I've gone through some difficult times. And what I find is rather than react in the moment and, send back an angry email or something like that, just take some time and write down the situation. I find writing things down, really helps. I feel frustrated because of this, and you write it down, and then you understand it a bit more. And I think that would be something. And also, as you say, the time will pass, and it always helps to have gratitude for the successes that you've had in the past. And they say the attitude of gratitude is something that is important. And I think true. We can be really reactive to something that's happened just now, and that can color our whole world, and that's all we can think about, and we can't sleep at night. But we need to take a step back. And one thing that I've done that's really helped me, I've just written down, I've had a 40+ year career. I've gone back and I've written down the most pleasing and successful and happy times that I've had in the various decades. And that's an amazing experience, because as like the exercise I did with Adrian, you really pinpoint what gives you joy. And that will quite often, this toxic experience that you're having, it may be just pointing you in a different direction that you need to go. And you think, why was I so angry and upset about that situation?
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. Writing it down just helps you to differentiate the emotion from the rational part of it. And you're very, very right in pointing out that when you're feeling down, you should write about the achievements. Many times when I'm helping someone who's gone through a tough time, reboot on their resume, and as we write the bullets and we look at all the things that they've done, they go, whoa. Looking back, I've done a lot. You don't
it's
realize. It's
been an amazing journey, right? They just took it for granted.
They forgot, or they're lost in this emotion of negativity. So I think that's that's a good point. Yeah.
I really do. Go ahead, Adrian. I was going to say that it really makes a big difference, because it kind of takes away the emotion of it.
And I think it's good what you pointed out, Jason, because when you're talking about not being overly emotional about it, being rational about it, and it's difficult, isn't it? When you're in that space.
It can be even at my age, and there are things that frustrate me, and I'm like, wow, this is really doesn't seem fair. Why aren't I getting this work that I've bid for or whatever else? But then if you kind of are able to write it down, or even speak to someone, like a career coach or a good friend who has a good perspective, it really, really helps. And I think the other thing is too, that what I've done is I've done forward planning as well. So today, let's say we're in October 2022, then I'll go in October 2027, this is what I'm doing. I am doing this.
Wow. Ooh, I like that.
I'm doing that. And as you get older, or maybe the years aren't going to be so big. You're going to make it a shorter chapter because you don't want to tempt fate, But doing that is really powerful because you're setting a template. You're setting a template for something, and you're putting energy into something that you really want. And look, if you would have told me when I was struggling in my first TV job in 1983-84 that I would one day be on CNN and BBC and ESPN and all these other networks, I would have said, you're crazy. no, I mean, there's no way that I'll ever get there.
Yeah, dream big.
But I was able to do it through just one step at a time, planning and dreaming.
Nice.
You got to dream as well.
I'm learning so much. Jason's an old friend of mine, and we've had so many conversations. But even having this conversation with him today, it's really amazing. And as much as we want to keep talking to him, we need to wrap up. But I have one very big and important question for Jason before we wrap up. Okay, what would you like to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered for someone that provided entertainment for the audience, but also brought wisdom. And uplifted people. I always, every day I start my day and I say, I want to bring joy to people. I want to entertain them, and I want to bring them, a message of hope. And that's what I really feel that's why I'm on this earth, to be a broadcaster, to be a communicator. And that's kind of manifested through different ways.
Love
it. Adrian, I want to share my tips about, if I can.
Yes, please do.
Because we were talking about, returning to Australia and some of the things I've learned in the last 3 years. And I know that some of your listeners or viewers, might be wondering about, well, how do I do it? Let's say you've got someone who might be working in the Middle East and they're coming back to Singapore, or they might be working in the UK and they've been away a long time. So this is, again, I've been back 3 years in Australia, and these are the things that I've learned. And there are 5 points. Yeah. So this is, I don't know if you remember, but on Money FM, I'd always make you do the 5 points, you guys.
So what are your 5 points now, Jason?
All right. So it takes longer than you think to gather momentum when you move back. You've always got your own timetable. Well, this should happen now. And I know I've heard you guys talk before about, that everyone wants things to happen quickly in a job hiring situation. It always takes longer, right? Okay, that's point number 1. Point number 2, it's important to prepare for the transition stage by staying positive. So that means that you're, not just sort of focusing just on the outcome. Maybe do some fun projects, or, learn a language or whatever you want.
Yeah.
Number 3, modern history, not ancient history, to create your new narrative and network. So rather than me going to people in Australia and saying, oh, look, I was on CNN and Atlanta and blah, blah, blah. You've got to create a story that's relevant for your market and audience. So very quickly, I started to come up with things that I'd done being back in Australia.
And that's and I have to jump in here, Jason, because it's amazing, because the work that you're doing there in Australia now on, what's the radio station called? Logan City, right?
Well, I do a few. I do 4BC.
Nice.
And I do 101 FM, Logan City. The one at Logan City is interesting because you are interviewing fantastic guests. It's like,
I know. Yeah, well, amazing. That's groundbreaking, isn't it? So you're bringing a brand of fresh air rather than saying that hire me because I'm ex ESPN, right? So that's amazing.
Well, but that's an interesting thing, Adrian. It's connected to my last 2 points. So number 4, embrace opportunities to mentor, and even unofficially. So even though a company may not say, oh, look, we're going to make you our mentor or our coach, you get thrown with really young people who need guidance. I did it at this 4BC radio station, which is a big radio station in Australia, which I've done for the last year. I was put with a producer who was 24 years old, had never produced the show before, and never done a show on their own before. So it was a great it was a lot of work for me, but it was a great opportunity to help someone and mentor them, and we all won because we had a great product, right? It was a 4-hour show on Saturday and Sunday of talk radio, and news.
Wow.
And point number 5, and this is the interesting one, Adrian, that you touched on. Volunteering can supercharge your new life and bring unexpected joy. That Logan City station is a volunteer station. It's a community station.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, but I don't care. For me, it's a platform to bring high quality content, and it has a good audience. It's got a very big, a decent sized audience. So I'm not insecure about being on a community radio station. I've been on CNN and BBC and ESPN. Yeah. So I know I can do the big networks. It's a platform. And I've had all sorts of stars from pop music, as you've seen. So they're my 5 points that I hope will provide. And I'll share these with Adrian. He's got them already, and you will by all means, put that on the LinkedIn page. So people who are maybe about to do the same thing that I've done can maybe do it.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Fact,
I hope I haven't gone on too long with my kind of my rubbish.
No. It's lovely, and this lines up with exactly what you said about what you want to be remembered for. Your work, your stint right now at Logan City, volunteering, and it's a vehicle, a platform for you to fulfill what you want to be remembered for, and that's really amazing. And even talking to you now, and you're sharing all your experience and wisdom with all our listeners. I think that's really amazing, and we want to thank you for your time. And we'll send you a copy of this. This is our latest book, The Great Career Paradox, with by Penguin Random House.
Yes.
And I'll mail you a copy, autographed.
I love that.
And myself.
Yeah, I love that. And, make sure you get Yen's autograph too. Is it both of you wrote it?
Yeah, we both authored it together. Painful experience for Yen having to work with me, but
well, you'll have to wait a while until we get into the office because we work from home. I work separately from home 4 days out of the week.
Well, I see. By the way, I want to share something with you. This is my Te Alia. Oh, sorry about the virtual. That's my Te Alia that I've created myself. So that's one thing I miss about Singapore and Malaysia is my tea. So I found a way to make
and then you got to tarik. You've got to.
I don't do the tarik. I don't do the tarik, but I do the the ginger and the evaporated milk. Tasty. Which I'm sure your listeners and viewers will know what I mean when I say tasty. So yeah, it's nice. I really miss some things about Singapore and Malaysia, and I will be coming back to see you guys soon.
Yeah, lovely. And a little known fact about Jason, he actually speaks Bahasa Indonesia as well, right?
Sedikit saja.
Selamat
pagi semua. Tidak pandai.
That's pretty cool. So that's nice. So we want to thank Jason. Thanks for coming on our show. Okay,
so
lovely having you. We look forward to having you on our future episodes as well, because we would love you to share some tips with our listeners about how do you, since you're such a fantastic presenter, a voice coach, and a voice trainer, and we've had you on before to train our corporate clients in terms of executive presence, in terms of presentation, and how to be media savvy. It'll be interesting to have you on board. One of our future episodes is how to share how do you present to the board. Things like this, 5 tips you can share. So we would love to have you on in future episodes, and we want to thank you for your time today.
Take care, Jason.
I would love to come on, and thank you very much. Tables are turned now. You're presenting and I'm your guest, so that's a bit different to what we used to do at Money FM.
Yeah, I know, but one thing that's never changed is that we're all good friends. So looking forward to deepening it as well. Looking forward to having you here in Singapore.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Jason. It's always such a lovely experience to have Jason on board. He hasn't changed. He still looks like he's 40. Yeah, amazing, right?
I like having guests because it means we have to talk less.
I think the guests on our show.
But I also like having the different perspectives. Wonderful.
It's the different perspective, Otherwise, it's always Adrian and Yen, But it's always good to have. Very soon we need to have sock puppets. Just talking as Adrian and Yen sock puppets. But it's amazing that we have a different perspective. And in this case, we have someone as illustrious. And the thing that amazes me most is that over a 40+ career, to be able to stay relevant and to keep pivoting and reinventing yourself, even in your later stages of your career, that's something that it's important for us to learn, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to deep dive a little bit more into what he's currently up to, and how he did it, because we should talk about his current gigging, because I think that's very relevant to our portfolio careerists.
We'll have him back in a future episode to talk about
2-3 more times.
Career. Portfolio career. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to share with our clients today, and as well as all our listeners and viewers, the whole idea why we brought Jason on board this morning is not only just to introduce him to you, because he's going to be a regular fixture moving forward. From time to time we're going to have him on board as a guest. But what is really important as well is that you have to keep reinventing your career. If you want to have a sustainable long-term career, if you want to enjoy the career longevity, you need to have that career strategy. You need to have that career agile mindset and push yourself out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, because the market's going to change. Your corporate decisions are going to change. Disruptions will happen.
Nothing stays the same forever.
Yeah, it's so sad, but it is true.
But it is good, honestly, change is
You
good.
want to look a little bit further ahead. When I first learned how to drive, my mom always say you have to see far, quote unquote. You have to look further down as far as possible. And to hear Jason say what's he going to do in October 2027, I never looked that far. So he's looking.
I'll be gardening and growing my pumpkins. Yeah, that's all I know.
You think? I don't know. I had something some other more cynical response, which I shall not say. But anyway, have a great weekend, everyone. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So what's up for you this weekend, Yuan?
A hike and nothing much.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna check out some dog boarding because I'm going on vacation in December, but someone needs to look after my doggo while I'm away. So Ping and I, wife and I, are gonna go and look for dog boarding options.
Find something safe. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of
And if
horror
any of you listeners out there have good ideas or good options for or good anyone,
I'm sure a few some of our listeners might just want to take your dog too.
No, I don't think they want it. He's a grumpy old guy. So no, anyway. Have a great weekend, everyone. And once again, if you have any other questions, just ping us. Okay, have a great weekend ahead. Take care, guys. Bye.